54 days later, and what a day it has been. Matt Campbell is officially the next head coach at Penn State. Reports confirm it. Reports also confirm that Terry Smith is staying on this staff. What other moves are going to be made here as we learn so much about what direction Penn State is headed in?
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into another live edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. Long time no see. Long time we haven't chatted since earlier today. My name is Seyko. I'm the host of the show as always. And thank you so much for joining me here on a live edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. As we are talking about the latest developments here, everything, speculation, what is actually on the record here, as Terry Smith is staying on staff. I mean, that is massive. that is huge to potentially keep some of the important pieces of this team together, right? It is important for recruiting purposes in the state of Pennsylvania. It also gives some stability to Matt Campbell's next staff. But will Jim Knowles be around, right? Dan Connor, Deion Barnes, there are other assistants that I would like to see remain on this staff. But first and foremost, we got to begin again with the fact that this is actually across the finish line. There is no more speculation, even though reports had said, okay, Penn State has zeroed in on its candidate in Matt Campbell. And then they said Penn State is working towards finalizing an agreement. But what was the holdup? What was the holdup? And here we are. Penn State has its next head coach in Matt Campbell. Already seeing what the naysayers say, the people that are critical of them, the biggest critics. Well, he's no good against top 25 teams. He didn't have much success in the Big 12. It's not the kind of success that he had in the Big 12. It's the kind of success he had at Iowa State. Iowa State is not some powerhouse in college football. Iowa State isn't full of aggressive resources. Ames, Iowa. People want to dunk on State College, Pennsylvania. Ames, Iowa is very difficult to recruit to. Matt Campbell is one of those few coaches in college football right now that is truly doing more with less. Now imagine what happens when you give him the war chest that Penn State has. Because this is what's officially been reported. Multiple outlets are saying that Penn State is going to commit $30 million in NIL to Matt Campbell. $30 million. Oh, that's not chump change. The alleged, so it's not quite to Texas Tech's level, which is allegedly, I mean, and again, in an allegedly Pat Kraft said this in that leaked audio recording, that Texas Tech is paying its roster $40 million. But I'm not here to compare and contrast Texas Tech and Penn State, but I do want to provide some perspective. Still, $30 million is an aggressive funding plan for your new head coach. $30 million for roster construction, roster retention, whatever you want to do with it, Matt Campbell. So when people say that Matt Campbell, recruiting is questionable, right? But is it because it's Matt Campbell, or is it because it's a product of Iowa State as a program? It is difficult to recruit to Iowa State. And I think that Matt Campbell, the fact that he had the success that he did, speaks volumes. So he's going to have $30 million in NIL funds to go build a roster in this new age of college football at a place that is more desirable than Iowa State. Next part of it, $17 million for a coaching staff, for a football operations staff. So that is recruiting, that's assistant coaches, coordinators, $17 million. $47 million is going to go to Matt Campbell to build a football team, to build the personnel. The people that tried to tell me the entire time, I know this coaching search didn't seem like it was going, and I have another interesting tidbit to talk about here. with the Matt Campbell, because why wasn't Matt Campbell the focal point of this search, or at least one of the preferred candidates by Penn State? I'll tell you why in just a moment. But a lot of people like to say that Penn State is definitely not a top 10 job. They're not top 15. Hey, they might not even be top 20 or top 25. There are a lot of programs that would like to have that kind of money to throw around. Penn State, conservatively, is a top 15 job. In my mind, they're definitely within the top 10. The financials say it. I think it was The Athletic. There was a report that was put out that valued all of the football programs in college football, Ohio State being number one, but Penn State being within the top 10 in terms of overall value, in terms of overall total value. So if you actually look at the numbers, Penn State's a top 10 job. Fringe top 10 job, but it's in the top 10. So that is why Matt Campbell is taking this job, because he has passed up other opportunities in the past. This is from other analysts, from other reporters. Josh Pate has said this before, but it is actually tangibly on the record that he turned down the Detroit Lions for Penn State. Not in this process, but in the past. He turned down the Detroit Lions. Detroit offered him an 8-year deal that was worth over $60 million to be an NFL head coach about 2-3 years ago. He turned that down, but he's taking the Penn State job. That speaks volumes. That tells us a lot here, how desirable that Penn State is, because Matt Campbell has been constantly, and Iowa State people have been saying, well, this is par for the course. They didn't believe that Penn State was going to be able to do it because Matt Campbell had turned down everybody year after year after year. So what's Penn State going to do? We're not afraid of Penn State poaching our head coach. He turned down the Detroit Lions after all. Penn State is a desirable job. Matt Campbell proved it today. Pat Kraft proved it today. So here's the other interesting tidbit that I want to tell all of you about, and then we'll get to Terry Smith and potential other coaching moves, is that Penn State, I will let it slide. I will let it slide. But Matt Fortuna, who covers Notre Dame sports and covers college football in a variety of ways, put together his own individual report via his Substack and said that Penn State actually had Matt Campbell on its original short list of candidates. But here's the catch. They almost fumbled this. Not just the entire coaching search, but Matt Campbell. Because I can only imagine the reaction I would have had if this was the reason why Penn State didn't land Matt Campbell, if that reality existed. But it doesn't, because Penn State has Matt Campbell. If we went down this timeline, Matt Campbell switched agents in the process. I can't confirm right now who his agent is, because I'd probably make some sort of joke about Jimmy Sexton at this point in time, because that's been the running joke through this entire process. A lot of coaches that have said no to Penn State are affiliated with Jimmy Sexton. James Franklin is affiliated with Jimmy Sexton, right? So that's been the running joke. I'm not here to talk about that, but Penn State had contacted his former agent, and that former agent never referred the new agent or Matt Campbell and said, hey, Penn State's interested. Nothing ever materialized from there until now. So at the beginning of this coaching search, about 50 days ago, Penn State had tried to make contact with Matt Campbell and couldn't because they called the wrong agent. I'm willing to let it slide. It's going to slide because Penn State actually got their guy. They got a good head coach. They got, under the circumstances and through the entire roller coaster of it all, this is an A+ move because of how Penn State was able to recover. It is still a great hire, regardless, because there was so much turnover in college football. Was he the best coaching candidate overall that Penn State could have gotten? Absolutely. I mean, there are other coaching candidates that, yes, you think of at Texas A&M, right? Mike Elko. Okay, Penn State was swinging big. Kurt Cignetti at Indiana. They were going after home run caliber hires through the entire search. Matt Campbell isn't necessarily in that tier one, but then I would argue that in tier two, Matt Campbell's right there. And the fact that you landed him after he had turned down upgrade or a step up year after year after year, and Penn State was finally the job that he said yes to, after all of this, I consider it lucky, consider it Pat Kraft finding a way to bounce back, all of it. And now he's ready to go to the battle. He is ready to go to battle. The first move has been made. Terry Smith is staying on staff. What that means for Penn State, what are they doing at defensive coordinator? Because conflicting reports initially is John Haycock, who is the defensive coordinator at Iowa State currently, is rumored to be joining. It, at least the intention is to get him on staff at Penn State. But why Jim Knowles might actually be the defensive coordinator next year. We're going to talk about it coming up next on this live edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. And this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is the best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into that moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as a player heats up. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more if it keeps you locked in into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com or the FanDuel app, and some of your favorite NFL teams. Their lines are available for them. Pittsburgh Steelers are underdogs against the Ravens this weekend. The Eagles are slight favorites against the Los Angeles Chargers. If you want to check out those lines, they're available over at FanDuel.com and the FanDuel app. Visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. That's FanDuel. The game moves fast, and so can you. Again, I really appreciate everybody joining me for another live show. Been busy over here on Locked On Nittany Lions. I should say it's your team every day. It's your team twice every day. As there's been, this is the third episode that we've had dedicated to football and wrestling in some capacity. But as we continue here, again, got an agenda. Appreciate your thoughts in the live chat. I really do. I'll try to peek in there when I can, but I got an agenda to get through as we have the news rolling in. So Terry Smith is staying. He is going to be on the next coaching staff. And I mean, that's monumental for, I mean, where can I begin with that one? Not only are you keeping somebody that is valuable to a Penn State coaching staff, you're also keeping him away from the enemy. My biggest concern, and I really did believe that this, I mean, if the everydayers know this, I was concerned that Terry Smith was going to go to Virginia Tech. It was a possibility. And I thought it was a significant possibility. Clearly, that was speculation. Clearly, we know what we know, and we don't know what we don't know. That Terry Smith gets a 4-year extension now. You don't have to go and worry about him at Virginia Tech recruiting alongside James Franklin, because Terry Smith is an A-plus recruiter, especially in the Pittsburgh area. So for him to stay on staff, get a 4-year extension, this isn't a year-by-year basis or anything. It stabilizes. So it helps merge what Penn State was still doing well in the interim after James Franklin was fired, because Terry Smith is still good at his job. I know that people are going to argue, well, Terry Smith was never the right hire. He was never going to be the best head coach at Penn State. I thought he proved a lot. So that's why I'm glad that he's still going to be there in some capacity. If that means he's the point person on recruiting, is he the associate or assistant head coach again? He's getting a raise. He's getting an extension. He gets to stay at the place that he calls home. And that matters. You're getting somebody that's going to help Matt Campbell with the transition here. Because while Matt Campbell has some connections out this way, some connections to the Northeast, probably not too many in the Mid-Atlantic DMV. I didn't see a lot of recruits that were going out to Iowa State. They were mostly right from Iowa, go figure. The Midwest, some from Florida, actually had a little bit of a footprint in Florida, but not too much in Pennsylvania. And that's where keeping and retaining Terry Smith is an A+, because now Matt Campbell can focus on the Midwest and his strong points of Ohio, because he was born and raised in the state of Ohio. What you were able to build in the state of Iowa, the other surrounding states in the Midwest, right? Kansas, Oklahoma, a little bit in Texas. Penn State's actually expanding its footprint a little bit here. We're still going to see roster turnover. We're still going to see some shifts in recruiting because Matt Campbell has to establish himself in Pennsylvania. That is going to take time. And when you have James Franklin at Virginia Tech, and I'm not saying that's the end all be all, just know that there's going to be resistance. Know that it's going to be an uphill battle. But Terry Smith helps mitigate that. Terry Smith helps helps weaken the damage. And that's massive. That is huge. It gives Matt Campbell more of a seamless transition. It helps integrate him into Penn State University, and having Terry Smith, who's just an ambassador overall for the university, for the state of Pennsylvania. Big win, massive win. No other way to put it. So to have him on staff, you can retain, again, it's interesting to see with the roster dynamic, because a lot of people like Terry Smith. A lot of players liked James Franklin. Where that loyalty resides, you would like it to reside to Penn State, of course. So to be determined. But I think Terry Smith will be able to keep some key players around, and then you don't have to play too much portal free agency if you're Matt Campbell. You're still going to get a lot of Iowa State players to come over. But you do have a quarterback. That's why I'm interested to see, is it going to be Ethan Grunkemeyer? Is it going to be Rocco Becht? Are you going to be able to retain guys like Anthony Donko, Cooper Cousins, Malachi Goodman? You have starting offensive linemen. You have Andrew Rapplier and Luke Reynolds, veteran tight ends for next season. You could have a pretty strong backfield. If I had to predict, right, it's still, at least at this point in time, I don't want to declare anything. I don't want to try to predict anything because conversations hadn't been had. So it's to be determined, wait and see. But Terry Smith is there. I imagine defensive players are more likely to stay with Penn State in 2026 than offensive players. But that's where keeping Dan Connor, Deion Barnes, linebacker and defensive line coach respectively, Ty Howell, tight ends coach, Trace McSorley, quarterback assistant coach, Phil Troutwine, Anthony Poindexter, Danny O'Brien, Marcus Hagans. Jury is out there, but I imagine it is likely that they leave more so than they stay. Let's talk about the coordinators, because John Haycock has been with Matt Campbell for a decade now at Iowa State. He's been his DC. He's been his defensive coordinator. He hasn't had any aspirations outside of that. And initial reports say that the intention is to get him to follow Matt Campbell to Penn State. But what does that mean? Does that mean that's going to be a defensive coordinator? Does that mean that it's going to be as an assistant coach, an analyst? You want a coach like John Haycock on staff in some capacity. There might be an avenue where he's on staff with Jim Knowles. I'm not against Jim Knowles going. If Matt Campbell believes that John Haycock is the guy at defensive coordinator and wants him to continue that way, so be it. Okay? That's why when you make a head coaching switch, you're going to have these kinds of changes, even though Knowles is under a heavy contract. But it is not out of the realm of possibility that Knowles is your DC next year for Penn State, and that Haycock is an analyst or an assistant coach. Why would that be the case? Why would Haycock take a demotion here? Well, we talked about the resources in segment 1. The other interesting part of this is that Haycock was actually exploring retirement, that he was supposed to retire after this season as a possibility. So Knowles could be DC next year. And I would be okay with that, especially if you retain a good amount of the defensive nucleus, because Jim Knowles' defense would be going into year 2. and you wouldn't have to reset, start that clock over again. I talked about that. If you're going to lose the entire defensive roster, okay, then it becomes a little questionable, becomes a little debatable there. Matt Campbell's going to have to learn Jim Knowles' system, or are they going to keep it simplified? But if you're able to keep key players, I'm not saying that Penn State can or that they will, but they should try. Chaz Coleman, Max Granville, Anthony Specca, King Mack, Darius Dixon, all those guys. That's your defensive core right there. I'd even throw in Xavier Gilliam, Ivan Kamaju. That's a nice defensive end trio. You got somebody in the middle there. You go into the portal, see if you can get somebody, because one of the things that Penn State was lacking was that massive defensive tackle that is an anchor for a Jim Knowles defense. See if you can get two, because you need a backup. Somebody that's 350 pounds that just eats space. You need that in a Jim Knowles defense. They didn't have that this season. They didn't have somebody that was just simply a space eater, somebody that could take on double teams, and it would free up the athletic playmakers to go and make a play, right? So Jim Knowles, this can actually work out, but you have to find a way, and that's where I think the bridge is with Terry Smith. You have to find a way to keep those key players on defense. Oh, and I should have named Tony Rojas and Amari Campbell. I named Anthony. Did I name Anthony Specca? I might have. Alex Tatch, probably somebody that I should have mentioned as well. So there is a linebacker core right there. LeVar Arrington II. Penn State has some players that it can work with and then go get the complementary parts over from Iowa State and via the transfer portal. But to be determined, don't let anybody tell you right now, because I tried to with the Haycock news that he was going to come over to Penn State, that, oh, this means that Jim Knowles is most likely out. That is not the case. To be determined. We are going to find out sooner rather than later, I imagine. But nothing's set in stone as far as what direction Penn State's going to go in there. Okay, more staffing changes. Mentioned quarterback. What is Penn State going to do with its roster? Right? Already getting some text messages speculating, okay, what moves is Matt Campbell going to try to make? Well, we got plenty more to discuss here on this live edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. And today's episode is brought to you by Aura Frames. It's the holiday season, folks. It's officially here, which means gift hunting season is on. And if you want something meaningful, personal, and guaranteed to get a reaction, Aura Frames is the gift that delivers every time. It's not just something you wrap. It's a way to share memories, because Aura isn't your average picture frame. You can preload the frame with photos before gifting it. So when they plug it in, the memories are already there. No apps to figure it out, no setup headaches, just instant smiles. Grandparents, parents, newlyweds, friends and family, anyone who loves photos. That's just about everybody, right? Endless uploads of pictures, 30-second videos through the Aura app conveniently. You can add personalized messages right inside the frame so the gift feels thoughtful the moment it's open. Packaging comes gift ready. No price tag, no wrapping needed. That's a huge win. Saves the hassle. For a limited time, you can save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames, named #1 by Wirecutter, by using promo code COLLEGE at checkout. That is auraframes.com, auraframes.com, promo code COLLEGE. And this deal is exclusive to listeners, and frames will sell out fast. So order yours to get it in time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Again, auraframes.com. Terms and conditions apply. All right, one final segment on this live show, and then get into the live chat. Want to hear from all of you. So just to kind of briefly wrap things up, and I can check in on social media to make sure I'm not missing any breaking news here. I want to make sure that I did get through everything so far on the agenda. So Matt Campbell's officially the head coach at Penn State. John Haycock is rumored, expected to come over to Happy Valley, but it's to be determined if that's as the official defensive coordinator or in some sort of analyst role. Terry Smith is officially back on staff. That is a 4-year agreement. So he's anchored into Penn State. As far as everything else, we also talked about, I didn't talk about the length of the contract agreement. It is an 8-year deal. It is an 8-year deal. I don't think the financial terms have been officially reported, but multiple outlets are saying that it is an 8-year agreement. the financial terms that we do know is that there will be roughly 30 million in NIL funding and 17 million for staffing. The war chest is open. Pat Kraft is ready to go to battle. So there it is. We'll see what somebody like Matt Campbell can do with the actual resources at his disposal. Because I would argue that he's not necessarily the antithesis of James Franklin, but he's definitely different. He's not a recruiter first. He is a football guy first. He is an X's and O's guy. This is a guy that's going to put scheme first, that it's the mentality of if you build it, they will come. So the product on the football field will sell itself. He doesn't need to market anything. The winning will market the football team, the program. Okay. He was able to do more with less at Iowa State. So I'm eager to see with someone who gets a substantial increase in resources, who is going to go get for his assistant coaches. Okay, well, Jim Knowles might be. So Jim Knowles might already be pre-selected for him. Terry Smith, right, as well. But quarterbacks coach, running backs, Stan Drayton, I'm not opposed to Stan Drayton being back on. We saw Katron Allen take a significant step forward. Stan Drayton's able to recruit the Philadelphia area. You want to take care of both sides of Pennsylvania. You have Terry Smith in Pittsburgh. You have Stan Drayton in Philadelphia. There you go. And then Dion Barnes, Dan Connor, right? So that's the idea. The ideal staff, I don't want Matt Campbell just to take over a Penn State staff. I want him to go and get assistants that he know will benefit him, that will help him out. And again, I like the idea of being able to have a larger footprint for Penn State in the state of Ohio, in some of the Midwestern states. I do really like the idea of that, because then you're branching out. You have to nationalize your recruiting plan. And Penn State was doing that. They were going to Florida. They started recruiting in California. That is California for Penn State. That's modern day college football, ladies and gentlemen. But that's the nature of the beast that is college sports right now. That is college football in particular, is that you have to go. It's not just, hey, we're going to hit on Pennsylvania, DC, Maryland, and Virginia, the DMV. Maybe a little bit of New Jersey and New York and Ohio, and we'll be done. No, you got to go to all regions. You got to go everywhere. And he has the funds to go and do that. $47 million to be exact. So other staffing moves that I would like to see, that I expect to see, I would like to see have conversations with Stan Drayton as the running backs coach, have conversations with Dan Connor and Dion Barnes. So that would be 2. Have a conversation with Trace McSorley. Is he ready to step up and be the quarterbacks coach? Because he played a significant role in getting Peyton Valzone to commit quarterback for the class of 2026 for Penn State. You can get Iowa State commits to come over. Probably not all of them. I don't know about most of them. Maybe half, at least half. You can have those commits. They sign their letter of intent. You can get them to transfer in the portal on January 2nd, even though they're signed to Iowa State. So they would transfer as true freshmen, but then they could be at Penn State. So that's the idea. And then what are they going to do at quarterback? So I'm partial to Ethan Grunkemeyer, and this is where Terry Smith's going to be nice to have around, because then you might be able to keep players like an Ethan Grunkemeyer. But Rocco Beck still has a year of eligibility. That is Matt Campbell's guy. That's the Iowa State quarterback, if you don't know him by name. Don't be surprised. That's all I'm going to say. Speculation at this point, but don't be surprised if Ethan Grunkemeyer, who probably doesn't, he started half of the Big Ten schedule and looked pretty darn good. My preference over Beck, I've seen people try to float Bo Prabula. Both of them. Ethan Grunkemeyer, way ahead of both of them. Not only because I feel like Ethan Grunkemeyer is just scratching the surface. We've only seen the early stages of his development. I think he's going to get so much better. And he has 3 years of eligibility. You want Grunkemeyer on your team, and go figure, Matt Campbell actually tried recruiting him once upon a time. So there is a prior relationship to be determined. Rocco Becht is his guy. He's also from the state of Florida, but he did go from Florida to Ames, Iowa. So clearly location doesn't really have an impact on him. But if Matt Campbell's going to go with his quarterback, I understand that. Becht is a veteran. What if you put some more talented wide receivers and tight ends around him? Is he going to be a better quarterback? Because college football analysts said that Becht was a top 10 quarterback coming into the season. He didn't play up to those expectations, but there's an idea that Becht can be a really good quarterback in college football. Nobody had Ethan Grunkemeyer performing as well as he did because he struggled against Iowa. He struggled against Ohio State. Then he looked great in these last few games, ever since the second half of Iowa. So if you want my vote, you want my seal of approval, it's Ethan Grunkemeyer. Keep him around. Keep some of those other coaches around. Andy Kotelnicki, I imagine his time is up in State College. He looked better down the stretch of the season. Notice how when Terry Smith held guys accountable, everything fell into line. Andy Kotelnicki was back in his bag. He looked like the offensive coordinator of old. That looked like a top 15 offense again. I don't think Andy Kotelnicki is bad. I don't think Jim Knowles is bad. I think it's a product of the system. This team had a lot of other issues that weren't just coordinator specific. So am I advocating for Kotelnicki here? I'm advocating for who Matt Campbell wants to fit in his system. If that is Andy Kotelnicki, okay, I'll buy into it. But one way or another, don't be shaken up one way or another. If Kotelnicki actually does get retained, I doubt it. I imagine he's going to go somewhere else because I don't know that he wants to be in State College anymore. I imagine Matt Campbell's going to go in a different direction. Jim Knowles is there. Jim Knowles is still regarded as one of the best defensive minds in college football. So it doesn't shock me if they end up going with Knowles as the DC if he doesn't want out of his contract. If he wants to stay at Penn State, he likes what he's getting paid, and Matt Campbell wants to retain him, okay, let's make this work. Other position coaches, it's going to be interesting. I got to do some research on the Iowa State coaching staff at this point. What assistants would want to come, would be worth joining the new Penn State staff? Are they worth having? Or because there's more money in the staffing pool that you're able to go and get better assistants? Again, I like Stan Drayton. He's one of the best running back coaches in the country. You got to keep him. Ty Howe, one of the best tight end coaches in the country. You got to find a way to keep him. Is that your offensive coordinator hire? Does Matt Campbell roll the dice to keep Ty Howe around? Because that's been the chatter that, hey, he's ready to go and be an OC. He's that next up and coming offensive mind. So he might be beyond a tight ends coach. Maybe you promote him to offensive coordinator, just throwing it out there. I'm not saying that's my choice, but I'm saying it's an option. I want to throw out options. Dan Connor, Deion Barnes would be huge on this staff. So just trying to look for any final updates here. We're after 10 p.m. on a Friday night. See if there's anything breaking. Okay, here's a bit of breaking news that Matt Campbell's official announcement, his introductory press conference will be at noon Eastern time this Monday. So Monday, December 8th, he will be announced and have his introductory press conference. There you go. That's the breaking news. Let's see if I'm missing anything else at this point in time. No, just what a change of events. What a turnaround. What a comeback. You got your home run. You got your home run if you're Pat Kraft, because you were down. You were well past your final strike. You were well past it. You were down to your 27th out. You got 27 outs in baseball. You were at out 26, because if Penn State didn't make this one happen, I don't know. It was going to be a very different show. It was going to be a very different type of reaction. This salvages a lot. Good for Penn State. Love the direction they're headed in. Well, he wasn't that successful at Iowa State. Have you seen Iowa State? Have you seen Iowa State? Give Matt Campbell the war chest. Let him go to work. Okay, that's my agenda. I got a lot of comments here. I'm going to try to get through the initial ones here and see what everyone's saying. Let's see. Right out of the gate, it always works out to get a good coach. Terry Smith is staying. Let's have a positive and sunshine pumping attitude. And the biggest thing, Franklin is gone. We move on. No more talk about him. Oh, you got to mention James Franklin. Okay, James Franklin still won a lot of games at college football. I don't need to dunk on him. The issues were there. You give credit where credit is due. You give criticism where criticism is due. James Franklin won a lot of football games. He didn't win the right ones. The ones that would have got Penn State into that great elite tier, that would have gotten them into the elite tier, never could. And this wasn't just one, a couple times, the third time, 17 times. He was 0-17 in big games. All the games that they were supposed to win, they won. But the ones that were a level playing field against those elite opponents on any given year, Ohio State, Michigan, now Oregon, you had Iowa when they would peak, Michigan State when they would peak, every single time. Every time. His best wins were those playoff games, but that was Boise State. That was SMU from Texas in 15-degree weather. When the deck was neutral, when the deck was not stacked in your favor, James Franklin came up short every time. And then the systemic issues that were going on this season that we now have some clarity on, that is why Penn State moved on. Oh, let's see what else we got. Comments are great. We love the comments. Yeah, it's actually shocking how good things are turning out when you consider where things were just 2 days ago. It's not about how you start, it's about how you finish. And it was an ugly start. It was an ugly middle. It was an ugly wrap up, but the finish, the photo finish was great. Are we getting rid of Jim Knowles and Campbell's going to bring in his DC from Iowa State? To be determined, right? I hope people heard that in this show. To be determined. It's great news. Pat Kraft's job safe for now? I imagine it is, because his seat did look a little warm, but again, we don't know what we don't know. Internally, it might be just fine. It might have been fine the entire time. You can't control when you have, because everybody fully thought at Penn State that Kalani Sitake was going to be the head coach. Now, I disagree with putting all your chips into the middle of the table and saying, we're going to take a chance on this guy that eats, sleeps, and breathes BYU. That's a difficult one for me. I don't agree with that decision, but when you have a handshake agreement, it's not like he was being flaky the entire time and you still kept saying, all right, we're going to keep going. More chips to the middle. We want this guy. He was in it all the way through. They had a handshake agreement. He's, again, the word is, well, this guy's honorable. His handshake means everything. It means it's gold until it wasn't. So is that on Pat Kraft? I mean, technically, yes, because he made that decision. But if someone's going to lie to you, so that's, it is and it isn't. So as far as his job safety goes, I think his job's fine right now. He's increasing Penn State's revenue. All the athletic programs, for the most part, are in a better spot. The Adidas deal, the stadium renovations, NIL's at an all-time high. Pat Kraft is doing his job. It's been ugly these past 2 months. Don't get me wrong. I've been critical where I've needed to be critical. And if this didn't turn out the way that it did, he's probably not here. But under the circumstances, Pat Kraft, nobody was questioning Pat Kraft months ago when Penn State was in the college football semifinal, when Penn State women's volleyball won a championship, when you saw Penn State wrestling take another step, if you can believe that. That's already the most dominant team in all of college athletics, but they got even more dominant. You see Penn State baseball take a step forward, right? All the other athletic programs were in a better spot than they were before Pat Kraft took over. Penn State, I mean, do I even need to say Penn State men's hockey making a Frozen Four, Penn State women's hockey as well? The soccer team's still going. I get it, football's king, but you manage a whole athletic department. And the athletic department as a whole is doing significantly better. And it's under Pat Kraft's direction. To each their own as far as, well, he didn't make those coaching hires. Okay, but he gave them better leverage. No, he didn't hire Cale Sanderson. No, he didn't hire Katie Schumacher-Colley. This is his hire, actually. So if Matt Campbell doesn't work out, it is on Pat Kraft. But I am not going to be critical right now of Pat Kraft because he did save the day. He did save the day. And the athletic department as a whole is in a much better spot than it was 3-4 years ago. It wasn't doing bad, but it's still in a better spot. It's better than what it was. So, okay, this is interesting. Franklin was a CEO and Campbell is definitely more of a pure football coach. That should unite the fan base more, hopefully. Yes, I mean, this blue collar, X's and O's guy, he lets the recruiting speak for itself. He'll build a recruiting staff. I'm not saying that he's just going to go and sit at his desk all day. My point is that you don't have to market the program beyond what it is. James Franklin was called a used car salesman. How do you get that label? Because you need to let the product speak for itself. And that's where Matt Campbell's going to focus. And that's going to resonate with a lot of Penn State fans. They're looking for Matt Campbell's got a run first mentality. He's not going to be, this isn't going to be a USC offense where it's 4 or 5 wide receivers. They're going to air the football out. No, it is going to be ground and pound, defense, hard nose, physical, blue collar football. That's the mentality that's going to come in here with Matt Campbell. But the reason I clicked on that comment, because you mentioned the word CEO. You still have to be a CEO to an extent. Matt Campbell is going to settle into the X's and O's, but you are managing a football program. You're not just coaching a team. So if you want Matt Campbell to really settle into that head coaching role, go get a CEO, go get a general manager so that your head coach doesn't have to play both sides. If you want him to be worried about football 24/7, the actual X's and O's, the product on the football field, let him be a head coach. But if you want him to be the do everything guy, which is what James wants to be that. I think part of the disconnect here was that Pat Kraft was saying, hey, you don't need to be all that. You can be a head football coach. But James, he said this, he's on the record with this. I like being, and it's not word for word, but he said, I like being involved everywhere. I like being involved with all the position groups. I like being involved with recruiting, the offense, the defense, the dinners for the donors, right? The boosters. He likes to be involved in all of that. Okay, go be that at Virginia Tech, because that only gets you so far. Penn State, you need a power structure. Have a football coach, have a football staff, have a recruiting staff, have an NIL staff. And I'm not saying James Franklin was sitting around negotiating NIL deals, but it seemed like he had a little bit of influence everywhere instead of just worrying about, I got a football team. Let me make sure the football team's good. He was everywhere. So, okay, there we go. Follow-up thoughts on a GM. I don't have any names in mind in particular, so I'll get back to everybody on that. But you need a general manager. On the idea of a general manager, you just need one. Go and get one. College football is becoming a lot more like NFL football. Roster management, financial management, and it's because of NIL. It's because of the transfer portal. The transfer portal is free agency, and NIL is contract negotiations. You need a general manager. Penn State has the resources, has the flexibility to do that. I feel like I've answered this, but I'm going, like I said, going back through the comments. Who are top assistants other than Terry who we need to retain? If I had to rank them, Deion Barnes and Dan Connor, 1A, 1B. I might even say Ty Howell, 1A, 1B, 1A, 1B, 1C. Ty Howell, probably the most. That's difficult. All three, preferably, but Terry Smith was definitely number one. Ty Howell would be number two for me. It's a tie between Deion Barnes and Dan Connor, but really it's all three. It's even between those three. Ideally, you'd like to keep Anthony Poindexter around, but he was brought in with James Franklin. Does he go to Virginia Tech? I don't know, because he graduated from UVA, and UVA and Virginia Tech do not like each other. So is he going to swallow his pride? Is he going to go against his ego and join UVA, or is he going to go and join VT? I don't think so, but we'll see. We'll see, right? Stan Drayton's going to be on that list too. As far as Danny O'Brien, Marcus Hagans, Bill Troutwine, I don't expect any of them to stay. Andy Kotelnicki, I'm not against it. I'm not against Andy Kotelnicki being the offensive coordinator next year. That's going to sound crazy to some people. I'm not against it because, again, he did coach a top 15 offense a season ago. And when Terry Smith, notice, just hold him accountable, say no gimmicks. This is what we're doing. He's actually when you give him some parameters, when you give him some guardrails, he actually is a really good offensive coordinator. That's all I'm going to say. Okay. But if Matt Campbell wants to go in a different direction, don't blame him. Okay. So that's to be determined. I don't have a stake in that one, actually. Let's see. What other comments do we have? Oh, I see people going back and forth in the comment section. I see it. Oh no. A lot of arguments in the comment section. Does anybody have any questions? Or just some other tangible comments that I can respond to and not arguments? Let's see. Oh, I'm sorry, everybody. The comments. I'm just gonna scroll. I'm just gonna scroll well past. There's no way that this argument's been going on for 20 minutes. Oh, it has. It has been. Okay. So the comment section was. Yep. There's that argument went on for, it looks like, about 20 minutes. So because I'm just catching up from the start of the chat. Well, I hope you guys settled your differences. Okay, here we go. Yeah, I see. Yeah, I see people don't like my Andy Kotelnicki. Some people don't like my Andy Kotelnicki thoughts. What about Grunkemeyer? If it's not at Penn State, he'll probably go to Virginia Tech. I mean, that makes sense, right? He committed to James Franklin. He committed to a James Franklin team. He's spoken everybody's spoken very highly of James Franklin. Not all the Lettermen, but I really am eager to see. Here's what I want to finish on, because we're supposed to go 30 minutes, because this is a big deal, because this is a big hire. We've gone well past the 30-minute threshold. Just anybody that's new, this is how we do things here at Locked On Nittany Lions. We do about 30 minutes. We're supposed to anyway. But for you guys, I'm going a little bit longer. I'm really eager to see the players, and are they going to put up or shut up with all of the chatter about Terry Smith? Was that all for show? Was that trying to strong arm Pat Kraft into making a decision that maybe wasn't necessarily the best for the university, promoting him to head coach? Because Tony Rojas went on the record and said 90% of the players will stay if Terry Smith is the guy. Well, Terry Smith isn't the guy, but he's still a guy. He's still on the coaching staff. So does that mean you're going to stick around because Terry Smith is there? He's not the captain, but he's the first lieutenant. So what does that mean? That's what I'm eager to say when people like Micah Parsons, who said, I'm not coming back to Penn State if Terry Smith isn't around. Okay, well, he is around. Tony Rojas saying 90% of the roster is going to stay if Terry Smith is the guy. Well, Terry Smith's still on staff. I doubt that 90% of the roster is going to stay. But what about 70%, 50%, 30%? Anything? There are good players on this roster. I'm not too concerned about, but I don't, as I sit here and start to say, I'm not too concerned about allegiances, but allegiances are going to define what happens in a matter of a month. We are going to see it first and foremost. What I'm interested in is the actual, are you just saying things to say things? Because Terry Smith is still on staff. So was that just kind of a way to make Pat Kraft's job more difficult? Or did you mean that when you said we love Terry Smith? Well, Terry Smith's still at Penn State. It's going to be very telling. It's going to be very telling where everybody ends up. Is it at Virginia Tech? Is it anywhere else? Is it at Penn State? There are good football players on this team. I would like to see some of them stick around and be on Penn State's roster next year. Ethan Grunkemeyer is one of them. I've made that very clear. I would like Ethan Grunkemeyer to be the starting quarterback. I would like to see guys stay on the offensive line. Kobe Howard at wide receiver. Tyser Denmark at wide receiver. You got good ball players. I already named them over on the defensive side. So time will tell. But Matt Campbell is here now. Matt Campbell is here right now on Friday, December. Well, okay, technically he'll be introduced December 8th, but you know, the players know who the coach is. He gets started. He gets to go to work in 3 days. Well, he'll be introduced, but he can start getting in contact. Okay, Terry Smith. Hey, tell me about these players you think we should keep. Jim Knowles. Hey, are you my guy at defensive coordinator? Or should I try to convince Haycock not to retire? Are you keeping Deion Barnes and Dan Connor on staff, Stan Drayton, all those guys, everybody? You start your interview process. You get situated. You get acclimated. Then you start talking to the players. Hey, are you worth keeping on my team? Do I need to go into the portal to get somebody else? Do I need to bring over an Iowa State player? Or can I roll with you? Those are the next steps. And that's where we're going to wrap things up on this edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. Big day, huge day. Remember it, Friday, December 5th, after 54 days of a coaching search, and a coaching search that took this twist and turn, all because Pat Kraft and company did not have the right number to the right agent for Matt Campbell. This could have been solved a lot sooner. All's well that ends well, right? My name is Zach Seyko. I'm the host of Locked On Nittany Lions. As always, we do this daily. Sometimes we even do this 3 times a day. We have shows 3 times a day if we have news like this, where we talk about football, wrestling, basketball, recruiting, right? Grouped with football and wrestling and whatever else. Talk about hockey, right? All your favorite Penn State sports teams is my point here on Locked On Nittany Lions daily. So subscribe to the YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts. I thank you so much for joining me on all these episodes as of late, especially these live ones, contributing your thoughts in the live chat. I'll talk to you very soon. We'll have more updates in due time, as there's going to be plenty of breaking news here with all the changes going on at Penn State. So be right here for it on Locked On Nittany Lions, your team every day, and part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcasting network out there.